It is said that all great fairy tales begin with the words, "Once upon a time." But very few of those tales actually have fairies in them. And in this instance, such introductions are unnecessary. There is magic in this world every moment of every day, and it makes no sense to limit that magic to merely once upon a time. So here I begin my story, which is actually about a fairy, with this simple sentence. This is a story about Twig, Oaklin, Fluinia, Thistlebottom, though you may know her simply as Twig the Fairy. On a light and lovely, mystical Monday evening, during her leisurely stroll through the enchanted fairy forest, Twig abruptly stopped when she realized it had been 27 seconds since her last adventure, and that needed to change. So off Twig went in search of her next adventure, which began deep in the forest with a precariously placed book. It was clear at once that this was no ordinary book, for within the pages Twig found a message from an old friend asking her to meet in a hidden mermaid cave. Twig wandered further and further into the dark cave, searching for a light that was said to be found at the very end. From within the light emerged a creature so hauntingly beautiful. It was Lyrique, the mermaid, and she had called upon Twig in need of her help. Lyrique explained to Twig that the mermaid rings of power had been stolen, and only Twig could get them back. Twig's fancy fairy feet were transformed into the most beautiful mermaid tail, and when she figured out how to flip her fins, it was time to get the stolen rings back. Lyrique explained to Twig that 2 of the stolen rings of power belonged to twin sisters whose job was to take care of the coral reefs. Without their rings of power, they were incapable of fulfilling their duties. The 3rd and final stolen ring belonged to the mermaid who looked after all of the ocean's wildlife. Without her ring, she too was powerless. So Twig and Lyrique continued on their journey in search of the stolen rings, and Lyrique had an idea of just where to find them. In the shallow, murky shoreline lived a sea pixie who was notorious for being naughty. If you've ever taken your eyes off the ocean and been splashed by the water, it was most definitely the sea pixie's work. When Twig and Lyrique reached the shallow waters, they discovered that the pixie had taken the rings. Instead of being upset, Twig and Lyrique decided to show the sea pixie kindness, which was something she had never experienced before. With a little bit of magic and a lot of swimming around in circles, Twig and Lyrique transformed that naughty sea pixie into a mermaid. They left the shallows at once and returned the rings to their rightful owners, and all was forgiven. The sea pixie promised to never steal again, and she even offered Twig her very own mermaid ring. With the rings of power back, everything fell into order, and the new friends swam and played all day. Twig's work in the ocean was finished, and after a fun day of play, it was time to return back to the forest. It is said that all great fairy tales end with the words, "and they lived happily ever after." And in this instance, I am pleased to say that is precisely the ending I will use. And they all lived happily ever after.